Welcome back to another episode of Trash Talk. I'm Jon-Bernard. This is Nick. We are the K-Roos brothers giving you the combat news worldwide. We're currently in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia for a massive fight week here with the Zone Boxing. It's going to be pretty crazy. Some big names here. But other than that, we've got a pretty big name on the podcast right now. Someone I've been a fan for a long time. Someone that's fought for a title in the UFC. Aussie, Astro Boy, Steve Erceg. Steve, thank you so much for joining us.
No, my pleasure. Thank you. Thank you for the warm introduction.
Mate, no, I mean, look, I can't say I've followed you all the way throughout your upcoming career when you were going through the ranks with Hex and Eternal. But when you landed on the UFC, you made a splash from a lot of performance on the nights. How do you feel right now with your current UFC standing and where you are in your career?
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't have asked for anything more. I got thrown straight into the deep end, which, honestly, great for me. I felt like I lost a lot of time during COVID and stuff, so I was happy to get straight to the top of the division. And yeah, both in my wins and my losses, I've learned a lot. And I mean, all I really want to know is who the best in the world is, and I still think I can be that guy. So it's just making progress and pushing for that number one spot.
Just quickly, Stevie, you mentioned COVID. What was it actually like being a fighter during COVID, especially, in the up and coming? Obviously, UFC had to go to Yas Island, they had to do stuff in the Apex. But what was it like for fighters outside of the UFC?
I mean, there were no fights going on at all. And yeah, you couldn't really go to the gym and train either. So there was a lot of people meeting up at car parks and getting some sparring in, that sort of thing. It felt something like something out of Fight Club. It was quite interesting, but yeah.
Steve was in the Perth Never Back Down. Pretty much, that's what it sounds like.
Pretty much.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Look, I want to get into your early career before we start talking about your upcoming fight now. It is said that you are a massive WWE fan, and that's what got you into MMA. Do you still follow WWE? Who are your favorites?
So I was a big, WWE fan back when The Rock and Stone Cold Steve Austin and Shawn Michaels were big. But nowadays, I don't really watch it too much. Couldn't tell you anybody other than maybe Roman Reigns is probably the only person I know. Maybe Logan Paul. There you go.
Do you acknowledge Roman Reigns?
Yeah, I think he acknowledges Roman Reigns. He says it. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Now I want to ask you, what was it about WWE that got you into the sport of MMA? Was it Brock Lesnar crossing over? What drew you to the sport?
Yeah, it was definitely Brock Lesnar. So I've always, because I was following the WWE, and obviously he was such a big athletic dude. When he went over, I was like, well, there's no way he can lose. He's so huge. And then to have Frank Mir, a much smaller man, grab his leg and rip on it and make him tap, I was like, I don't know what happened, but I need to do whatever that is, and that's what I went to do.
Fell in love with it. What did you make of CM Punk's debut and then his eventual 2 fights?
I think he did as well as he could have hoped to do. He didn't have any background in combat sports. He wasn't like an amazing athlete or anything like that. He loved the sport. He wanted to have a go, and he was in a position where he was lucky enough to get a shot. So I really never thought he was going to do overly well, but he got a cool experience out of it.
Were you a bit torn there, Steve? Because I know a lot of UFC fans or a lot of UFC fighters were unhappy that he was on like a main card UFC fight on a pay-per-view card for UFC. But then as a WWE fan, I kind of wanted to watch it happen as well. So did you kind of fall in the same category?
Yeah, I wanted to see what happened. He made a big name for himself. You can't hate on too many people like that. I'm not a huge fan of Jake Paul or anything like that, but not because of what he's doing, more so the fact that he keeps winning. But I couldn't hate on him. Like if I was in that position, I would have done the same. So
now you grew up in Perth from an Italian and Croatian family, so that brings me to my question: who do you support in the World Cup?
I usually support Australia. But
okay.
I have a soft spot for both. Obviously, if they both played each other, it's a tough one.
What do you lean more towards
for that one?
Yeah, more on the Croatian side. I've seen you cooking up a spit on Instagram. You love your big barbecues. Do you lean more towards the Croatian side?
I can't answer that question. I think either way I answer, I'm gonna disappoint the fans on either side. So I love them both. Glad to be from both, and we'll leave it there.
Yeah,
I think Croatians are more scary, so maybe just say Croatia.
Well, you forget about the mafia though, so you never know. That might come after you.
That's old school though. That's old school. We're talking modern day.
You and Jack Della, Italian
Yeah.
Mafia in the UFC. Now, but how close were you to potentially fighting on 312, or was the plan always to be fighting on a later date, on a later fight night?
No, obviously I wanted to fight on 312, but we never got an offer. So I don't know if they asked people and they didn't want to come over because of the tax. I have no idea. Maybe they just didn't like. They had enough big fights. They didn't need another. I don't know what it was, but I never got an offer. I would have loved to fight in Sydney, but it's pretty good too.
Well, I've been loving your fight promotion. You recently just did a Michael Scott skit. I mean, you're really embracing the Michael Scott, the Office character. How does it feel being viewed as the Michael Scott of the UFC?
um, I'm happy with it. I think it's funny, and if other people like it, I'm glad because that video could have gone one or two ways. Everybody could have thought I was an idiot and what's wrong with this guy, or they could have enjoyed it and laughed. So I'm happy it went that way and not the other.
How many takes did it take you falling off that bike? I didn't want you to risk any injury, but you did it pretty well.
Thank you. No, I only did 2 takes. Both were okay, but I thought that one was a little bit funnier. But yeah, I think I could make improvements on it. I could fall harder next time. Maybe actually hurt myself.
How did you kind of react though when the Michael Scott comparisons first came out? You obviously had that big Pantoja fight, and as soon as everyone started seeing you become a bit more mainstream, they made the direct comparison to Michael Scott from The Office. How'd you like that comparison?
Honestly, I've been getting those type of comparisons my whole life. So I've been called Zoolander, I've been called Michael Scott, McLovin, Novak Djokovic. So I've gotten them for so long that I wasn't really surprised when I got it in the UFC.
I like Zoolander. Zoolander does this. It's a supermodel.
Yeah, you'll take it. You'll take it. Now,
That's it.
I want to talk about your championship fight. So early on in the UFC, you got to face Alexandre Pantoja for the flyweight belt. And a lot of people think you won. I mean, we had you winning that fight as well. What was it like going so close to, what was it like being the biggest test for the top of the division?
Yeah, I mean, it was, I guess, kind of validation. I mean, validation would have been me actually winning, but knowing that I went out there, I gave him a good crack. I didn't falter under the lights or anything like that. It was validating to know that all the hard work I put in has led to me being pretty good. So I'm looking forward to obviously taking confidence from that and fighting other guys that are supposed to be pretty good.
Well, mate, after the fight, he came out and said, this young kid, he's so talented. He'll be a future champ one day. What's it like getting words from, him basically, like you said, validating you, saying you're going to be a champ in a defeat?
Yeah, no, I mean, it feels good. I don't know how to answer that one because, yeah, it's cool to get that recognition from the champ, but at the same time, it's like, obviously, I'd much prefer not have lost the fight. But yeah, it is what it is. I learned a lot from it. I know I can do it. I got to put it all together and I'll get there.
So that now talks about how do you get back to the title? What's your path back to the title, Steve? You obviously got your fight coming up. You're coming off the loss against Kai Kara France. But what's your path back to the title look like?
I don't know who, but I think 2 or 3 solid wins gets me back there. It depends obviously on the result of the I think probably Panto is going to fight Kai, right? And so I think the result of that, and then how long does he want to wait before he fights? Because then is Roy Val straight after that? Does Kate fight Roy? I don't know what's going on. So I'm going to have to fight whoever they think the best guy is and then get the mandate of the masses.
Because it's a pretty open division. I mean, like Manel Kate loses to Mokaev, then wins in on the fight night in Tampa, and then all of a sudden he's asking for a title shot. So there's not really a lot to do, I think, in that division to get a title shot if you do put on a good performance. So
Yeah.
do you kind of feel that's the same thing? Like if you put on, a knockout performance or you get, you get a finish, that puts you straight back into the title conversation?
I think it'll put me in the conversation, but I do think I need 2 or 3. I think that's likely as far as the UFC is concerned. There's a lot of, it's cluttered at the top at the moment. And so 2 or 3 fights guarantees it.
Speaking of the Kai Kara France fight, you took to social straight away and you said, you live and you learn, and it's on to the next one. What did you learn from that fight in Perth?
Yeah, I mean, I always knew that I didn't deal with blitzes overly well. I get away with it a lot. Like Pantoja blitzed me plenty, and I didn't get hit with any hard shots. But I gave up cage control. It took away from some of my momentum and that sort of thing. And then obviously I was getting out of the way of most of Kai's shots, but the one that I didn't get out of the way of made me pay. So just tightening things up, dealing with that better, and just trying to make sure that if people do want to blitz me, I'm prepared for that much better than I was last time.
Would you like to run that back, that fight with Kai Kara France?
So it is a tough one because I hate losing, but at the same time, like I don't. If he wins a title, for sure. If he doesn't win a title and he wants, I would love to train with him. I never really wanted to fight him in the first place because he's a New Zealander. But at the same time, I don't like losing. So I want to get it back. We'll see what happens. If we fight, we fight. If it's the number one, I'll never say no to that fight. But if that helps.
Yeah, no, I completely understand. He had
Yeah.
kind words to say about you in the lead up to that fight, saying, your persona in person is so different from the fighter that you are. Everyone kind of respects your game in the octagon. I mean, if you do have the opportunity to face him again, how does it go differently? You're more prepared on the blitz side. What do you think would change?
Um, Obviously, I hope that I hit him instead of him hitting me.
Of
That's the
course,
one
yeah.
thing to say. But yeah, I think I deal with the blitzes better, and he wouldn't get to that second shot the same way. But it's easy for me to stand here and say that. We'd have to find out on a fight night.
Now, can I ask Steve? I know footy players, if they lose like a grand final, if they lose a big game, they never watch the highlights, they never watch the game back. But when you lose a fight like that, obviously you need to improve. Do you watch the fight back? Have you watched that fight back?
Yeah, for sure. I watched it plenty of times, and then it's hard not to see the highlights before, like UFC Sydney. They played some of the highlights for Australian fighters, and I'm there getting knocked down, and it's like, oh well, something that again you have to live with. It's happened to a lot of the great fighters. Yeah.
Because I know they stitched up Volk. I think on the broadcast they showed Toporia's knockout to him for the first time, and he was kind of a bit flustered by it. I don't know if it was real or not, if that was his actual raw first time seeing his knockout. But is it common that when you do get knocked out, that you kind of don't watch it back or you kind of put it off?
Well, it's never happened to me before, so that's the first time it's happened, and I watched it literally as soon as I got home. So yeah.
There you go. Improving straight away. Now, I want to get your thoughts on Manel Kape. He had obviously a great performance at UFC Tampa, put on a show. He was showboating. Given the state of the division, would you like to face him down the line someday, or where do you think he ends up?
Yeah, of course I'd like to fight him. He's one of the toughest guys in the world, and again, I just want to prove that I'm the best. So 100%, I'd be happy to fight him. I thought his last performance was really good, and he's always he hits hard, he moves well on the feet, and he's hard to take down. So he's a tough problem to solve for everybody. I'm interested to see his next fight against Asu, and then after my Moreno fight, potentially we fight each other and find out who's next for the title or whatever happens.
It talks to his mindset. He was trying to put on a show and obviously entertain. What does Astro Boy do? When you get in the ring, are you trying to look for a finish? Are you trying to get the win? Are you trying to entertain? What fighter do you want to be in the UFC?
I always want to get the finish. I don't like leaving it to the judges. It feels like obviously you're happy that you won, but it doesn't feel the same. Knocking somebody out or submitting somebody and solidifying that you were the best guy on that night is much better. And I've never been one for showboating and stuff like that. But I do it in the gym sometimes just to mess around. So I'm not above it or anything like that. Just I've never felt the need or felt the urge to do it during a fight. Maybe if he did it to me and I start feeling good, I might do it back. We'll see.
What's the maybe the WWE taunt that you might bring over to the UFC? What are you going to do after a big win, WWE?
Oh, I mean, my favorite one is get on the top rope and get the beers thrown at you, and that's the best one for sure. But Tai Tuivasa has done that pretty well, so I don't know if I have to come up with a different one.
The Stone Cold, get someone launching beers at you. That'll work. I'd love to see it. You heard it here first. That's Steve Erceg celebration. No, but Steve, how do you think Manel goes against Asu? That's obviously coming up. He was supposed to be your opponent. Do you think this is a better matchup for him?
I think Manel Kape's going to be a tough test for him. I think the only way Asu wins is to take him down, really, and I just don't see him taking him down. So I think he's probably going to get knocked out. And honestly, I thought that's what's going to happen against me. So I think it was whichever way it was going, like whichever opponent he got, the same thing's going to happen.
Now, there's a lot of beef in this division. I mean, there's beef between Kai Kara France, Manel Cap, Muhammad Mokaev. We're having beef with every fighter on the card. We recently interviewed him. He had some words for you, Steve. You guys exchanged some messages over Instagram. What are your thoughts on Muhammad Mokaev, and do you see a path for him back to the UFC?
Look, couldn't care less about him. He's a flog as far as I'm concerned. Like, yeah, I'm sure. I don't know if there's a path back to the UFC, but I know what he's like, and if I don't even know where he's living at the moment. But if we ever run into each other, I'm sure he's going to try to take a photo with me and then king hit me or some stupid shit. So we'll see what happens. I'm ready for whatever.
I mean, if he does, there are talks that he had to go and learn his lesson outside the UFC, and then he will eventually come back. Is that a fight that you would like to make? There's a bit of bad blood brewing, but also, I mean, prove yourself in the division as well, because he is 7-0 in the division and then got cut. Would you like to have that fight?
Yeah, he's a very good fighter, obviously. Like, despite him being a dick, he's a good fighter. So yeah, if he comes to the UFC and he uh, wants to have a fight, like I'm happy to punch him in the face. What do I care?
Let's go.
Welcome him back to the UFC, Steve. That'd be good.
We'd love to
That's
see that.
it.
Now, your upcoming fight in Mexico City against Brendan Moreno. He's coming off a win. Now, how are you feeling going into this fight? It's obviously on you're not on home soil, it's in foreign territory, but you're not a stranger to that. You fought in Brazil. How do you feel going into enemy territory again?
Man, I couldn't think of anything better than going in to Mexico fighting a Mexican. Like you watch how animated the crowd is for Canelo fight. You look at how vehemently they cheer their fighter. I'm gonna get so booed. It's gonna be amazing. I can't wait to go out there and upset the crowd.
That feel you? Do you get more like in a good WWE wrestler? They feed off the crowd. They feed off the energy of the crowd. They like the heat. When you're getting booed, do you hear it in the octagon? And do you want to put on a better performance?
Yeah, of course. I mean, I don't know what it is, but yeah, something about getting booed by the opposing crowd. It just feels like you're ready to fight. It feels like you're in the Coliseum or something, and they want you to get eaten by the lions. There's something cool about it.
Have you been to Mexico before?
Never. This will be the first time.
What about Brazil? How was Brazil? Like the treatment there? Obviously, you were going up against a Brazilian fighter. Do you reckon it'll be similar? Were the fans on the street kind of recognizing you and giving you a bit of shit before the fight?
Honestly, Brazil was way different than I expected. Everybody was so nice. I had most people they did want me to lose, but they were very respectful, happy to see me, that sort of thing. And then even like I got some fans that because Pantoja, the Flamengo guy, they wanted him to lose real bad, so they were cheering for me. So it was very interesting. It was not what I expected at all.
Okay, yeah, a bit of a mixed reaction there. What are your thoughts on Brendan Moreno? Obviously, I said he's coming in off a win. He's got a little bit of momentum. How do you feel like you're going to combat, his style?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, he's a great boxer, great mixed martial artist, and he's a really nice guy. So it's hard not to like the guy. But I just feel like he does best when somebody stands in his range, and I'm not going to just stand right in his range, so he can throw and land for free. I'm going to make him miss. I'm going to pull him into holes, and I think that'll give him trouble. And then after he misses and that sort of thing, I'll be hitting him and making him rethink his punches and his shots, and then that's where I start taking the momentum more and more and more and start winning the fight.
I mean, you guys will be headlining in Mexico City. What's the training regimen going to be like? You're going to get down there nice and early and get prepared?
Yeah, so I'm heading there in, I guess, a week and a few days. I'm going to be there for 4 weeks, make sure I'm acclimatized and, training at the PI over there and, just making sure I'm ready to go and, know what I'm getting into sort of thing.
We can't wait to see it. We want this Aussie W. We're going to get right behind you for this fight.
Is that the general time though? So like if you do have a fight in a foreign country, it's customary to get there a month before, get into a full training camp and get, climatized to the actual area?
Nah, so this one is longer than usual just because it is a high altitude. So usually we'd get there for maybe 10 days before, something like that. But yeah, because it's so high, I don't want to get there, find out that I'm not fit enough to go at 2,000 meters. So making sure I'm checking every box and leaving no stone unturned.
Now, UFC 312 came and went, and we saw Dricus du Plessis beat Sean Strickland. Looked like he added some more tools to his game. Now, his last fight, we actually brought this up when we interviewed him. He loves to keep receipts, DDP. And one was of you putting you on his Instagram story. What was your reaction of DDP keeping receipts and putting a photo of you getting knocked out?
Look, I didn't even know it bothered him, but yeah, it was actually pretty funny. I'm not gonna lie. But at the same time, like, I'm not the first person to say that his style looks horrible.
Yeah.
He's obviously a good fighter. I can't take that away from him. He's a world champ, but yeah, it looks ugly.
I mean, no, you've said it. Rob Whittaker and Izzy agreed on it. What do you think is about his style that is so unorthodox that people don't really understand?
I don't think he knows what he's doing. I think it's like a mystery to him. I think he's just going out there and swinging for the fences, throwing whatever he sees. And yeah, it works for him, but it's hard to prepare for somebody who doesn't know what they're going to throw.
That's, I feel like, a lot of the consensus is. It's like he's a very tough fighter to prepare for, probably because he doesn't know what he's going to do in there. But like you said, you got to give him respect because he is the champion. But going forward, do you see yourself maybe adopting a little of what DDP does? Maybe being a bit more unorthodox in the octagon?
I have tried in training closing my eyes and just swinging away, but it doesn't seem to work for me. So I might leave it for him.
Oh, that's gold. That's gold. Yeah, no, I mean, it was quite funny that he did hold on to that. He's gone at people like Drake for putting a bet on his opponent. So you're up there, and it obviously weighed on his mind. But do you have to be conscious of how you criticize other fighters in the UFC?
No, I mean, I'm going to be honest, and that's all I've ever claimed to be is honest. And so I got asked a question knowing very well that I might cop flack for it, but I'm not going to lie and say, oh, he's the best thing I've ever seen. It's like, well, yeah, he's a good fighter, but it looks ugly. I don't know what else to say. And yeah, I honestly, Australians give each other so much shit anyway. So when he came at me, I was like, man, like, good on you.
It's
Yeah,
good
I'm not
banter.
going to take it to heart or anything. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no, good on you, Steve. That's a great way to look at it. But I want to talk about the path to the UFC because you were supposed to go through the UFC through Dana White's Contender Series, and then it kind of got put off a little bit, and then you fought and finally made your debut straight into the UFC. But what do you think is the best path for Aussie MMA fighters into the UFC?
The best path. I mean, I still feel like Eternal is still probably gets the most notoriety at the moment. So yeah, becoming a champion for Eternal, I think is the best thing you can do. And then from that, you'll get, hopefully with a good manager, you get a shot at the Dana White's Contender Series. And you've seen a lot more Australians get that opportunity of late, which is great to see. And I think it will just grow the sport and grow the competitive atmosphere in Australia. So that's probably the best way to get there.
Do you think the pressure is the same from Dana White's Contender Series to just being called up on your debut like Colby Thickness in UFC 312? Like what that pressure of Dana White's Contender Series with him there at ringside by the octagon,
Fighting for your life, really.
fighting for an opportunity as opposed to getting called up for your debut. Which one do you think has more pressure?
I imagine the Contender Series has more pressure because you're not in the UFC yet. Like you're fighting. This is the fight that make it in. Not only do you have to win, but you have to put on this like amazing performance to get his attention. So that sounds like more pressure. Whereas, yeah, getting a fight in the UFC, oh, I made it. Like now I can just fight. I think it takes a little bit of stress off.
It definitely does. Definitely does. Now, talking about Aussies, who is someone on the regional scene, whether it's Eternal, Hex, up and coming, that you identify and say, this is the next up and coming Aussie? Who's a fighter you've recognized that's, bursting onto the scene in Australia?
That's a hard one. Because a lot of the guys that I was looking at as the next up and coming guys were guys that have now had their shot on the Contender Series, like Grilic and Gauchi and that sort of thing. I mean, is it Mangos? He's looking pretty good at the moment. And
George Mangos fights for the Hex champion.
Sorry?
George Mangos fights for the Hex champion, I think March 1st. Yeah, I think he's going to be possibly on the Contender Series as well, so he's up and coming.
Hex featherweight champion, yeah, he's pretty solid. Yeah, who I'm saying, who do you identify?
Harry Webb, I guess.
Yeah.
Harry Webb, and then I'm going to be biased and say my teammate Louis Christopherson. I think he's a very good talent. He works super hard, and he's an amateur at the moment. But I think, yeah, very soon he'll be a name to watch out for.
That's awesome. That's awesome to hear. Now, looking at other Aussie fighters, I mean, we all probably acknowledge Volk as one of the best Aussie fighters of all time. Where do you think he sits right now with him getting his rematch for his featherweight title? I mean, Ilya says he wants to move up. What do you think the best course of action is for Volk? Would you rather him get a straight rematch immediately, or would you like a tune-up fight and maybe fight a Diego Lopez or someone before facing Ilya again?
Nah, I think I'd want him to fight Ilya. That's what he wants. And yeah, nah, I'd want him to see him fight Ilya straight away. But that's a tough fight. So
Definitely.
But Ilya does want to move up. He's made known his desire to move up to lightweight. Does that, do you think, maybe like make Volk want to fight somebody else, or should he just hold out for Ilya to be ready for him to defend the belt?
yeah, I don't think Volk's the kind of guy that wants to hold out and wait for anybody. So if he'd have to wait, I think he'd want to fight Lopez and like for an interim title or something like that. But if it was up to him, I imagine he'd want to fight Ilya as soon as possible.
Well, the internet's frightened that it would go the exact same way as the first fight. Do you think Volk has the tools and is able to make the adjustments to regain the featherweight title?
Honestly, not sure. I think he's one of the best ever to do it. Yeah, I would like to think he can, but that's a real tough one. Like Ilya is really good.
The Ilya did, or I think there was reports that Ilya said he needs at least 6 months to cut down back to the featherweight,
Division, yeah.
get back to that division. He needs to cut for 6 months. Is that true? Is that how long some fighters need to get down to that weight or to cut weight? Do they need that long a period of time?
I mean, I guess I don't really know. I mean, nobody that I know has to have 6 months to cut down to a weight class, and if you do, either you're getting way too fat in the off season, or you shouldn't be in that division in the first place. So, if he is cutting for 6 months, it gives me more confidence that Volk can catch him and put him out. Because that's a lot of fluid that you have to take out of your brain.
He says he's walking around at 190 pounds, which I think is like nearly 90 kilos. For someone at his height, when I see him in person, he doesn't seem that heavy. So I don't know where these reports are coming from.
I think it's just an excuse for him to eventually go up. But yeah, I mean, if you're talking about Paddy Pimblett, he seems to drop weight pretty easy. So I don't think it takes long, and it could be just, change from fighter to fighter. Now, we have an upcoming fight night this weekend. I want to get your prediction. Henry Cejudo versus Sonia Dong. It's at UFC Seattle. How do you see this fight playing out? Do you think Cejudo can make one more lunge for the title?
No, I think Song Yadong's gonna knock him out.
Really, that easy? I mean,
Yeah.
he's a big underdog, surprisingly. Triple C. I think he does maybe deserve a little bit more respect. He's coming in as a big outsider, but Song Yadong just that much better and probably a better striker on the feet.
I don't think Cejudo is really a bantamweight. That's what it comes down to. Like, he's a great fighter. Obviously, he's a double champ and Olympic champ and all that good stuff. He's a great athlete, but I mean, he really should be a flyweight. I know he's a big flyweight, but he's not the right size for bantamweight, and Song Yadong is the right size for bantamweight.
Do you think he potentially calls it a day on his career if he loses this fight night?
Yes.
There you
I
go.
mean, he's already called it how many times?
Yeah.
He's already been retired, so it makes sense for him to call it again.
Yeah. Now,
It seemed like a big mistake for him to call it or retire when he was on top, because I guess you're looking for more money or something like that. I'm not really sure what happened, but like, you wasted 3 years or whatever it was of his absolute prime, and now he's come back and he just can't quite
Not same.
hang with the best guys.
yeah, no, that seems the way it looks. What about yourself? How long do you see yourself in the game? You said your ultimate goal is try and become the best in the world in your division. Do you want to retire out on top? Do you want to limit yourself and go to your, 30, 35? Or what's your ultimate goal in your UFC career?
My ultimate goal. I definitely want to win the flyweight title and then solidify myself as the undoubted undisputed champ of that division. It'll be hard to get as many title defenses as DJ. The amount that you have to fight to do that is just, it's a lot.
Hmm.
And potentially I'd want to move up after that. I want to fight at bantamweight. I'd want to do it more in the way that John Jones did it though. So take some time off, maybe a year or something, put on a little bit of size, and then I'm at bantamweight now. That's what I'm doing rather than hopping back and forth.
Yeah,
And
that
then
sounds like
potentially retire after that. Obviously after I win the title, a title or something like that, up there as well. But I have no age as far as when I want to retire. It's if I can fight till 45, then I'll fight till 45.
Yeah, no, you love the sport, and it's a great goal to attain. And talking about that, like, do you think it's fair to say that you were Pantoja's biggest test in this division? If you look at his past opponents, what he did to Kaya Sakura, how quickly he made work of him, how he's beaten Brandon Royval. Do you think you've been the biggest test for him?
It was either me or Moreno. We both had he had a split decision with Moreno. Obviously, it was a close fight with me. I don't know which one he felt was tougher, but yeah, both were tough fights. And but yeah, I wouldn't say that. Yeah, I couldn't say that I was definitely the toughest, but it was definitely a good fight for him.
And going into your fight, Mexico City, April 5th, what's the prediction? How do you see yourself getting the win?
After 4 rounds of absolutely battering each other, I hit him with a left hook and he falls down to the
They're calling it.
disappointment of the Mexican crowd.
to a course of booze. Hey, I mean, you're not a stranger to performance of the nights. You know, you've had a walkout off knockout before. What's that feeling like when you know you've got the win? You know, you're the main talking point of the card.
Highlight knockout.
The highlight knockout of the card. You get the bonus. What does it feel like when you walk off knockout?
Honestly, for him, I felt bad almost because again, he was a nice guy. I don't know if you guys know this, but he got a card, like a trading card made for me because he apparently buys them and gets them signed for every fighter that he fights, but they didn't have one for me. So he got an artist to make a card for me and then sign it with me and him. And so it's like, it was, yeah, sad when I knocked him out. I didn't want to have to hit him again. But obviously very happy that I got the win.
Yeah. No, obviously highlight reel knockout. One of the best we've seen from an Aussie, and it's always played in the Aussie highlight reels. So hopefully we see that in this Moreno fight. We can't wait to see it. I want to ask one more thing before we let you go, Steve, is when are we going to collab on a skit? I've got some Michael Scott ideas. I've got some office ideas. When I'm in Perth, we've got to link up and do it.
That sounds good to me. I'm open for it. Yeah. Any skit that you guys can think of, I'll definitely be involved.
Let's get it done. Maybe we'll use the gym. We can get a Michael Scott tutorial in the gym and we can make it happen.
Coming in Perth, you never know.
Yeah. We'll definitely link up in Perth. Steve, I want to thank you so much for your time. We wish you the best of luck up against Brendan Moreno and get it done for the Aussies, man.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much.